All right, today we're jumping into a really powerful and honestly a beautiful passage from the Quran. We're going to explore the story of the prophet Jesus, or Isa, as he's known in Arabic, as it's told in the 3rd chapter, Surah Al-Imran. So, let's get right into it.
So, the big question is, what does the Quran actually say about him? For this explainer, we're going to walk through a key part of his story, verse by verse, to really get a feel for his miraculous birth, the incredible signs he performed, what his core message was, and the divine plan that guided his entire mission.
So, where does this story kick off? Well, like a lot of incredible stories, it starts with something truly miraculous. The Quran introduces Jesus not just as another prophet, but as a sign, right from his very first moments on earth. Right away, the narrative establishes that he's, well, extraordinary. We'll start with verse 46 of Surah Al-Imran, which describes a unique miracle he was given from the moment he was born.
So this is his very first miracle, speaking as an infant. This is a profound sign of his prophethood. And think about it, this does two things at once. First, it's a clear defense of his mother Mary's honor against any nasty rumors. And second, it establishes right from the get-go that this is no ordinary child. He has a divine message.
Okay, so a baby speaking from the cradle is one thing, but how did this miraculous birth even happen in the first place? The story then turns to his mother, Mary, and when she gets this news from an angel, her reaction is one of completely understandable human shock.
Now, what's so powerful here is the divine response. It just bypasses all our known laws of biology and physics. The Quran presents God's creative power as totally absolute. The command be, or kun in Arabic, that's all it takes. It's a reminder that God's creation isn't bound by the same rules and causes that we are.
So that miraculous start? It's just the beginning. It really sets the stage for a life filled with these incredible signs. The Quran goes on to detail several miracles Jesus was given, and each one served as clear proof of his divine mission, not a display of his own personal power.
The next couple of verses get really specific. They lay out the knowledge and the amazing abilities he was granted, which were all meant to be undeniable signs for the people he was sent to.
Just stop and think about the power of these miracles for a second. Creating life from something inanimate like clay, curing diseases that were basically a death sentence back then, and even bringing the dead back to life? These aren't just parlor tricks. They were profound acts meant to make people question everything and point them toward a higher power. They were signs that he was, for sure, a messenger from God.
But here's the kicker, and you see it right there at the bottom. This little phrase that keeps popping up, by permission of Allah, or bi-iznillah in Arabic. This is so important. The Quran emphasizes this over and over again to draw a really clear theological line. It's saying, yes, Jesus did these amazing things, but he was a servant and messenger empowered by God. He wasn't a divine being acting on his own.
Okay, so the miracles are amazing, right? But they were just the signposts. They weren't the actual destination. Beyond all the incredible acts, the Quran really zooms in on the fundamental truth that Jesus came to deliver, a message that you'll find was shared by all the prophets.
So what was that message? What was he actually asking people to do? These next verses just cut right to the chase and distill his entire mission down to its absolute essence.
And boom, there it is. This is the heart of it all, the core of every single prophetic teaching in Islam. Pure, simple monotheism. He says, look, God is my Lord and your Lord, so the path to salvation is through worshiping him and him alone. That, the verse says, is the straight path.
Now you'd think a message that clear, backed by miracles, would be an easy sell, right? Well, not so much. Like a lot of prophets before him, Jesus' message was met with some serious resistance and disbelief. The story then shifts to the moment he starts looking for people who would actually stand with him.
So as he's delivering this clear message, he starts to sense this growing rejection, especially from the authorities. And this next verse marks a really pivotal moment where he makes a public call looking for allies who will stand up with him for God's cause. Faced with all this opposition, he asks for his true supporters. And their response is so immediate and powerful. They don't just say, hey, we'll help you, Jesus. They say, we are helpers of Allah. And then they use that key word, Muslims, which in its literal Arabic sense just means those who submit to God's will.
The Quran gives them the special name, Al-Hawariyon, which we translate as the apostles or the disciples. And by calling themselves those who submit, or Muslims, they're basically saying we're part of that same single chain of monotheistic faith that goes all the way back through all the prophets.
And this wasn't just them saying the right words. No way. The Quran shows us that their submission immediately turned into action, into this really beautiful and profound prayer. And I just love this prayer because it's so deep. They don't just ask to be believers. They ask to be registered among the witnesses. That's a whole other level. It implies they don't just want to hold the truth in their hearts, but they want to live it, to embody it, and to bear witness to it for everyone else. All right, so this brings us to the climax of this whole section. You've got Jesus and his followers on one side, and on the other, the opposition is stepping up their game. You've got human plans colliding head-on with the divine will. This whole story arc now comes to a head in one single, incredibly powerful verse. I mean, this is a verse that has echoed through Islamic thought for centuries, and it really captures the essence of divine power. Wow, that is such a statement of ultimate divine authority. It's referring to the plot that was being hatched against Jesus by those who disbelieved, a plot to stop his mission for good. But their plan was met by God's own counterplan, which the Quran describes as being infinitely better. And this slide really breaks it down perfectly. The Arabic word here for plan, makir, it implies scheming, plotting in the dark. But the verse just shuts that down. It says, yeah, human beings can scheme all they want, but God's plan unfolds to override everything else. This affirms that no human plot can ever get in the way of the divine purpose, and it perfectly sets the stage for what happens next.
And that leaves us with this massive question, doesn't it? The passage literally ends on a cliffhanger. There's a plot, and God has a better plan. So, what was that plan? What happened next? Well, that's a story for another time, but it really drives home a central theme in the Quran, that in the end, God's will is always, always victorious. Thanks for joining me for this one.